if you discontinue watching this video, please tell me what it was so that I can improve. Otherwise, hi and welcome to learning geology. So I am trying to learn geology today, Levees, and after we have done it, we're going to do body center training. And if you participate in the body center training, then it's that at your own risk. And this is part 2 of Levees. In short, a river can flood, and if it floods, it takes a lot of loose material with it, and that is now laid onto the banks next to it, and also in the ground of the bed of the river. And that way, the bed of the river rises, but also the hills or the banks at the side, and the river comes higher and higher above the other land. And then, now if something like that breaks, it can give a big flooding. And there are artificial and natural levees. And basically, where are we now? But we understood it all. But now we want to do a presentation basically about that in a separate video. First, there was a thing written about, I think it was in Louisiana or New Orleans in the United States, about that town that it is built on such a big bank like that. And now we want to look, can we make a presentation basically with the title, Why is New Orleans threatened from flooding? So that is written here. Let's read it again. Bank of a river raised above the floodplain by deposition of sediment. So the levee itself, that is the name for the accumulation of sediments, and that is now higher than the floodplain. The floodplain is the region which is normally flooded. Especially during floods, repeated flooding can build up the sediment on the riverbed and levees until they are raised well above the surrounding countryside. This occurs, for example, along the lower reaches of the Mississippi River in the United States of America. Natural levees are eventually broken by floodwater, and the river finds a new channel in the floodplain, where the process of levee building begins again. In some areas, artificial levees have been built on top of natural levees to prevent flooding. New Orleans is built on a levee which is largely artificial, but artificial levees may only postpone flooding, and raising the riverbanks even higher above the floodplain involves the risk that the eventual flood is more destructive than it would otherwise be, because there is more water. This is one reason why the flooding of the Mississippi in April 1973 was the worst recorded in 200 years. Another feature of the high levee of the Mississippi in the region south of Baton Rouge is that by raising the riverbed above the floodplain, they prevent tributaries from joining the river. This allows the spread of bayous, swampy regions with sluggish drainage. Okay, that is just another feature, do they say, the thing with the swampy regions. That is not part why such flooding could be more severe. Okay, I don't know what will be the final title of the video. We don't want to have it too big, just why is New Orleans threatened for flooding, just an explanation. But I can't get the title right now, so we're going to look for a title then later when we make the title. But basically we want to answer that question in the video out of curiosity, and the reason is New Orleans is built on artificial levees on top of natural levees. Levees are that the river is flooding, it comes over its banks, and by that it lays sediments to the sides of it and into the riverbed, and then that raises now the altitude of the river, because the river is now higher on its riverbed, and it works because the banks are also higher. And now if such a bank, such a levee now breaks, there's a lot of flooding. And New Orleans is built on artificial levees built on top of natural levees. So if now such a levee breaks, there could be a disastrous flooding. Okay, we could then add that the April 1973 flooding was the worst recorded in 200 years. So I have a second camera, which I'm going to start now. And I try to save it. I think New Orleans is in Louisiana, but I'm not sure, so I try to avoid saying that. New Orleans is a city at the Mississippi, and the Mississippi has levees, And these levees are hired banks basically at the side of a river. So if a river like the Mississippi floods, then it takes sediments with it, and it is now laid onto the banks next to it, and also onto the ground of the river. So over time, the ground rises higher and the bank rising higher, so the whole river is now at a higher altitude. And these higher sediments at the side of these banks of river sites, such as the Mississippi, that is what had happened. These levees have happened there at the Mississippi. And there are these natural levees higher, and then there are also artificial levees, and on top of that artificial levees, on top of the natural levees, where the river is now higher, there is New Orleans built. And it can now happen that such a levee breaks, and because New Orleans is built there, it gives a greater risk for New Orleans to suffer greater disasters, like the one probably in April 1973. And now that is according to Earth and its Resources on the page 131 of a Reader's Digest Library of Modern Knowledge, book 1, written by John Gribben and Peter J. Smith. I'm going to stop the second camera. And we have technically a second video to make, because that was the one question to New Orleans, just out of curiosity. But now we want to look, what is it with levees at all? And I think I'm just going to explain the same thing. There are natural levees and artificial levees. And now the thing with the swamps, the tributary cannot access it, and so swamps start to arise here. Let's read with one finger again. Natural levee. A river running across a flat plain may flood from time to time, perhaps seasonally. At each flood, more sediment is deposited along its banks. This build-up of sediment along the banks, together with sedimentation on the river bed, may eventually raise the whole river channel above the surrounding floodplain, with the water contained by the natural banks called levees. I don't know how it's pronounced. Okay, I'll start the camera again and now I'll try to explain. Levees. So a river is just running peacefully, but then it can happen that the river floods, and now the water comes over the banks, and it takes sediment with it, material, stones, whatever, sand, and now the sand is laid next to the river bed, so it comes up the water and takes, at the banks there's no more of this sand, sediments, whatever, and now they rise, and also at the river bed, through these floodings, there are now more sediments. Over time, after many of these floodings, there is a higher bed, river bed, because there's a lot of sediment, and also the banks of the river have gone higher. And these are called now levees. These natural levees, just as the banks have gotten higher, and also the river bed. And it is possible to make now artificial levees on top of these natural levees and build it even higher. For example, New Orleans in the United States is built on such a one. That threatens New Orleans from possible disasters, because such a natural levee or artificial levee can break, and then a lot of water comes out, and the river was already higher. And also the next thing is that now, because such river is now higher, the natural tributaries, so other rivers flowing into that river, can't reach the river anymore because it's too high, and the water doesn't enter, and it just stays there, and it gets swampy. There swamps are rising. And that is according to the page 131, Earth and its Resources, of the Reader's Digest Library of Modern Knowledge, Book 1, Part 2, written by John Gribben and Peter J. Smith. Now I'm going to stop the camera. And that was the geology part. If you were here for geology, you can go directly to the next part of geology. If you stay here and participate in the body center training, then it's better get on the screen. We are having the legs standing hip-width apart. We're going down into the knees a bit. And now we're flexing the legs and pressing the legs together. And now we are straightening one leg. Straighten it completely. Press together and flex the legs. Straighten it completely. And bend it again. Press together, flex. Other leg. Press together, flex. Bring it up. Straighten the leg. And bend it again. Press together, flex. Again, if you participate in the exercise, then it's better if you almost disable. And next exercise, a bit apart with the legs, a bit more, and go again down, head to the knees, and flex the leg muscles and press them together. Now straighten one leg again. Press the whole time together and flex. Straighten the leg completely and bend it again. Press together, flex. Other leg bended. Press together, flex. And bend the leg again. Press together, flex. And up. And now legs again standing and press to the outside of it. And out. One leg up. Right angle with the leg. Flexed foot. Even aligned hips. Taller with the back. And press from the top against the knee. Have a little bend in the elbow. And press from the inside. And now press with the knee up and to the side. Other leg. And press again from the top. And from the side. And now press up and to the side. And next exercise, leg up and press from the side against the knee and open slowly. And close again. Other leg up, press from the outside and open slowly. And close slowly. No free exercises on the ground. First the side plank, just on the elbow. You can do it also on the knees. Now if you can and like, on leg up. And now on the long arm. Arms out, leg up if you can and like, and bring knee to elbow. And now the same on the outside. First on the elbow, outside. Leg up. And now on the long arm. And arm out and leg up and bring knee to elbow. And up again. Do a walk a bit on the place, walk a bit on the place. Bring one leg up, pull the leg up. Other knee. Legs to the sides and breathe in. And breathe again out. Again in. And out. Now breathe in and close the legs. And breathe again out. That was the body center training. I thank you very much and until next time.